We are very pleased to welcome Baseball Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Um,
Reggie!
I kind of don't know what's going on, but I'll figure it out as we go, I guess.
Hey, man. I'm right here with you, brother. How you doing, Reggie?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm blessed, man. So, first of all, we had Hank Aaron here, God rest his soul, a few years ago. Legend. The other undisputed legend in our generation, undisputed legend in baseball, who Bill Mendel told me last night, the best way to describe this is, no other man in the history of baseball has ever stood inside the baseball diamond space, came up to bat, and at a World Series, 1 home run, 2 home run, 3 home runs in the same World Series. Never in the history of baseball has that ever been done. And I think he's been in 3 World Series. The record of Reggie Jackson is legend. I think you need to reset your welcome and recognize a legend in front of you in the way he deserves, Reggie Jackson. Let me also say, and I want to thank Keith, who's here, his business manager. Reggie tried to be here in person. He can tell you where he is right now, but he tried to be here in person. Last night, me and the CEO of Delta and a bunch of other folks were trying to get a plane to get Reggie here last night, and Reggie was completely cooperative. We just could not get it all lined up in time. But I want you to thank you, Reggie, for trying everything at your heart to be here with us in person. Tell us why you had a problem with travel yesterday. I think it'll be relatable. Then I want to go back and talk a little bit about, from your words, your journey in baseball and how it cross-connects with the issue of social justice today through an economic lens. But where are you at right now?
I'm in Houston, Texas. About 8 hours ago, I was in Boston, and we left there, I guess around 10:30, and it's about 2 hour and 45-minute flight down here. So we got to bed about 2:30, and I do feel I have a commitment to be with the team. The owner is a very close friend and a very gracious man, and one that is certainly involved in leveling the playing field for minorities.
Yep.
All minorities. So he's a wonderful guy. And so we got our butts handed to us here for a couple of days in Houston. We won the first game 5-4, and then we got our butts handed to us. The next 2 games, it was like a total of like 20-8, 20-9 or something. And then we got beat here, and then we went up to Boston and got waxed. And so it looked like we were going to fall apart. So I went to the ballpark. Gosh, the days are running together, and just kind of hung out from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon to game time, just trying to press some flesh and look guys in the eye, pat them on the back. And, there isn't a whole heck of a lot you could say when, the first game we down, second game down here, it was 8 or 9-0 in the second inning. And then we went to Boston. In the first game, we were down 6-0 in the top of the second or the bottom of the second. And so, it looks like you could fold up the tent and go home. I don't want to be here. At the same time, you got a game at 8 o'clock and your butt's going to be out there, and you better keep digging, and you better keep trying, and you better keep going so that you don't completely shame yourself for an entire winter. and then hang something on yourself and your career for the rest of your life about how you got destroyed and never got up off the mat. So just being around and letting people know you're with them, even if you say nothing, but just to share the space is what I tried to do on, I think today's Thursday. I did that on Tuesday because we got waxed on Monday. So you just be there.
Yep.
And I'm very close to the owner, and he's got family there, and a lot of the minority investors that are there, and you're getting killed. And so you're in a foreign place, and they're laughing at you and making fun of you, et cetera. And you see the owner with the investment, and he wears it as well. And so you just want to be with the people that are in need. So it was important for me to be around there yesterday. We did try, I think we talked around 5 o'clock yesterday Eastern time.
Yep.
To try to get an aircraft to come down, and couldn't do it. So I got up this morning. I didn't know where I was. Keith called me. I forget what time. I don't even know what time it was. He called me. But I then crawled out of bed, hopped in the shower, and I live about 4 or 5 blocks from the ballpark. So I got into my office. I'm on a phone. That technology piece stuff for me is not very friendly. So
you're
we're
doing
here,
just fine, Reggie.
For the right reasons. I met John I really met him through television, and was always impressed with the fact that he was constantly presenting the need for opportunity and the need for leveling the playing field for minority. His narratives were always interesting to me, and so I made a point to try to find him. And even with my lack of skills with the internet, I did find him. I think I connected with him through
Twitter. Thank you, man.
He called me back and put me in touch with somebody with an LA telephone. And then we finally met and got together in person in Monterey, California, in Pebble Beach, and shared a couple of days together. And so as soon as we connected on the phone, we knew there was some synergy we had the same thoughts and the same ideology of trying to make the world a better place, especially for us as minorities. So that's why I'm here today for a relationship that I built with a guy that I believe will make a difference. I'm 75. And so I've got all the answers. I'm involved in 4 or 5 diversity and inclusion groups. And I have all the answers because I've lived all the questions. And so it's not fun. It's not something you brag about. It's something that is painful when you realize that you do have the answers because you've lived it. And that's not really fun. You have a close association with people who feel oppression, feel pressure, feel awkwardness, are embarrassed and shamed. And so you have a close understanding of what beautiful women go through, what women go through, what Amerasian Latinx, and all different ethnicities that we have here in the country and religions. And so I get it, and I closely bond with people that are similar and have understanding of other people that go through the same things and similar things that I do. And so John relates to that and is in the fight. And so I've joined with him.
And he's Reggie, thank you, Reggie. Reggie's now our first Financial Literacy for All ambassador, where he's going to lend his voice at iHeartRadio and others to help people come into this movement. I want to come back though, Reggie. You said it sounds like you were 25 at 75, talking about your current situation, and you got to stick with people in tough times, and it's a little embarrassing, and you feel lonely, but you got to stick it through, and people don't understand. It sounded like you were 25 years old, 30 years old, back in the fight in baseball. People I think, don't really understand you. Let me back up and say Reggie is an extraordinarily successful businessman, extraordinarily successful. He's got a huge, beautiful car collection, which is also an investment, but it's also a passion we share. He's got many, many parts of him. But the part that people don't understand about Reggie is when Reggie was coming up in baseball, they said, oh, this guy is cocky. Oh, this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. No, he was fighting the headwinds of an entire industry, an entire infrastructure that didn't understand him and didn't expect for him to win, didn't want for him to win, tried to trip him up when he did win. And Reggie pushed through that the best way he could, and I thought he did an extraordinary job. But Reggie, talk a little bit about, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We have 7 minutes or so here, I want to get a lot in. But talk a little bit about the pain that you went through that period. People don't know your house burned down twice. They don't understand that you were almost killed in you were robbed after one of your games. They don't understand the pain that underneath this and all the slights. Get people into the window of your own sense of social justice coming up through baseball.
Well, I would go all the way back to being 11 or 12 years old, being from Pennsylvania, and we had an all-star game with the best players that they could find in the state of Pennsylvania to play a series against the best players of Florida. And it was an all-star, 2 all-star teams. We were hosting in Pennsylvania. I was the best player, Little League player around, but I was not allowed to play because they were afraid if I got hit with a pitch or I slid into second base hard, and that's my memory there, that there could be some kind of an incident or a fight, which was crazy to me. You got kids playing hard. But I was not able to play in that 3-game series that they had. I sat on the bench, and as I said, as the best player, and I was called a pinch hit to make the last out in the game. And I just stood at home plate, took 3-4 pitches until I struck out. I never even swung the bat. So I was so dismayed and lost as a child fighting that. That happened to me. And I remember walking home about 2 miles, and my father would drive around he'd drive with me. If I wanted to ride home, I said, no, I want to walk. And he drove and then kind of went up the street and came back around and made sure I was okay. And but I walked to home a couple of miles. As I said, he trailed me there. And on the way home, I said, I'm going to be a big leaguer. I'm going to be a big leaguer in every step that I took. I became a better football player. I went to Arizona State University, got a football scholarship, wanted to try out for the baseball team. The baseball team had never had a black player on it. And so I tried out for the team after a spring football game. Took batting practice, and the coach, who was from Arkansas, said to me, Reggie, would you like to play baseball? I said, yes, but I need to talk to the football coach. And he said, if you manage a 3.2 grade average, I'll let you play baseball, because my scholarship was in football. I'm a better football player than baseball player.
Wow.
But I made the baseball team. I became the most outstanding player in the country, and it was the second year of the baseball draft. I was not drafted by the Mets because the general manager there, Bob Sheffing, thought that me in New York City, dating what he said out of my race, I was dating a Mexican girl. And my middle name is Martinez. But the Mets thought I would be social trouble. And so I was not the number 1 pick in the country, although I was by far the best player. They drafted a catcher. He failed, never made it really through the minor leagues. And I became a pretty good player. So, and at the same time, as I went through that, Um, my first games were in Lewiston, Idaho, in the rookie league in June of '66, and I got hit in about the sixth or seventh game in the head. I was taken to the hospital, but they would not admit me because I was Negro, colored, or whatever you want to call me. So I was sent down to Modesto, California, and there I played with the great Raleigh Fingers, who's a Hall of Famer. Yep. And I also played with a guy named Tony La Russa, who's now the manager of the White Sox and of the A's and the Cardinals, et cetera. Got in the Hall of Fame, Fingers in the Hall of Fame. And from there, the next year, I went to Birmingham, Alabama. I went to Waycross, Georgia for spring training. And I never participated in spring training because I did not sign a contract. I was making $500 a month. I got a raise to $800 a month. But I was slated to play in Birmingham, Alabama, and I didn't want to go. So I never played one game in spring training. The owner finally came down, and I went to Birmingham. He talked me into it. We had our first team dinner, welcome home dinner at the country club. And when we went into the room and were about ready to sit down, the guy got on the microphone and pointed at me and said, "He can't eat in here."
Wow.
And the owner of the Kansas City A's said, "Well, that's not a problem. We're going to go down to the diner and have hamburgers, and you all folks stay here and eat. We'll be down at the diner where we can get a burger with the team, and we'll enjoy ourselves, because I'm not going to stay here if Reggie can't eat." So a few minutes went by, and they allowed me to eat there. But going through that year, playing in Montgomery, Alabama, and Macon, Georgia, Knoxville, Tennessee, they had to go into the hotels when we traveled to see if they would allow me to stay. So I went into the hotel in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the guy said, "Well, the nigger can't stay in here."
Wow. And,
it just makes you feel so bad. But then I had a great manager who would not leave me behind. If I couldn't stay, we didn't stay there. And if I couldn't eat in the hotel or couldn't eat in the restaurants as we drove the bus along the road, we got food to go. He would never leave me behind. And so we went through those kind of things. And then the things got a little more subtle in the major leagues, but they were still there. When I was in Oakland, it was not nearly as bad because there's a large minority population, black population there. And we had few black players on the team there. We traveled together, and I was really raised as a baseball player with the Joe Rudys and Raleigh Fingers and Sal Bandos and Catfish Hunters. And the acceptance was, I met those guys when I was 19, and you just stayed together. We stayed together up until around the ages of 28 or 29. One World Series, like we were playing ball in the backyard, but we weren't a good team. We were one of the dynasties, won 3 World Series in a row, won 5, 6 Western Division pennants in a row. And I went to New York, and I could feel the racism again. I was presented as a guy that was arrogant and cocky. I just wanted the dignity that I deserved. While some players were coaches on the field, I was merely talented. And so, that got to be difficult. And we had an owner that was a pretty good guy in George Steinbrenner.
Right.
But we had a manager there that was difficult to deal with. And so the racism was apparent, and felt it through the game of baseball. There was still a significant lack of minority participation when it comes to dealing with the future of the game and what the game should look like. And having input from minorities doesn't really exist there. I could tell you that I was high bidder for the Dodgers in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was high bidder for the Oakland A's and was denied the opportunity of ownership.
Oh, high bidder, I mean you had bid on the bid to buy the team.
I was high bidder for the Dodgers. My partners were Bill Gates, Paul Allen, and a guy named John McCaw, who sold Cellular One to AT&T, that family.
Right.
And I was high bidder again for the A's in the early 2000s.
Not that long ago.
We wanted to move the team to Vegas, and there's a gentleman that's well known. His name is Steve Ross, who owned, I want to say Reliable, but he owned a huge real estate company. He's still in the real estate business. He owns the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And we have the plans for a downtown stadium that we took an option out, 60 acres, to build a stadium in Las Vegas.
Right.
At the time, the team was trading for 140 million, and I bid 190.
Right.
And couldn't get the team. So, I think if you take a look around baseball, you can see the lack of minorities. There's a large population of Latin American players, but certainly the African American is gone from the game of baseball, and it's really not talked about that much. It's not a focus for them. It's not their interest. So, I'm here in Houston with a guy that's got an eye for fairness and an eye for wanting to level the playing field. I do have a foundation that focuses on STEM education.
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah. We probably have one of the finest curriculums in the country, and we have it in front of 1 million students. And right now we're working with probably about 40,000 throughout the country in Detroit, the Bronx, Oakland, Memphis, a few other cities. And so we're about ready to go to St. Louis and
Mr.
pick
October
up 4,000 students.
Right.
Yes, it's the Mr. October Foundation. So it's still prevalent. It's still around. So my focus is to do my best to level the playing field. We're putting a fund together that'll be based out of Kansas City that will focus on seed money for entrepreneurs. And I was on the phone earlier today working on a new project that we have that will, we'll write a check and get involved with seed money. So, partnering with John is very important to me. It makes sense. I want to be a part of it and help continue to build the blocks and see if we can overcome racism and build some ways to reduce bias, get involved with more agents of change. And I did see, was very interested in a gentleman that placed his $100 million to make a difference.
Yeah, Ned from Twitter, where we met on Twitter. Let's back up here, Reggie. We're a little over time, but are you guys enjoying this? We're gonna wrap this up, but Reg, I don't want to go, and I'm so glad you unpacked this myth of you being cocky and arrogant. And it's really funny when a white man walks in a room who believes in himself, they say he's confident. But when a black man walks in a room who believes in himself, they say he's arrogant and he's cocky. And
well, you'll get the same thing, John. There's people sitting in the audience that are women there, and what they'll say about me is, Reggie's difficult to get along with. There'd be a black woman or an attractive woman or a person that is not a non-white, and it's like you're difficult to get along with because of your new position that you've earned. And it's like, I'm not difficult to get along with. You're not comfortable listening to me. You're not comfortable taking my ideas. You can take a look at it. There is no way of being polite to make change. I've got some things that I want to say now publicly that I'm holding for the right time. And I've found out over the past year, there is no right, subtle, comfortable time. You've got to say it.
So I got something to say about you as we wrap up. But before we do that, I want you to tell this story that most people don't know. You had just won a game It was an important game. I believe it was New York. I may be wrong. And you had a situation. You had driven a beautiful car that you just acquired, I believe, and you had every reason to be proud. And you pulled up to a night place. You know the story I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you share that very quickly?
Yeah. The night I hit the 3 home runs in '77, I bought a Rolls Royce the next day. It was a guy I didn't have a place to go very much in New York. So I hung out at a guy's place that sold exotic cars. And I'd go there and eat lunch with him every day and share thoughts. And I bought 3 cars from him that year. And so I went in there and bought a car from him. And he said, Reggie, I got the car for you. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. I ain't going to sell this car to nobody else because it's yours, my man, Mr. October. You got to be the guy to buy this car. You're going to make $2 million this winter with the homers. With the homers you hit, forget about it. I'm keeping it until you come down here with the check to buy it. So that afternoon, I called my accountant and we got it paid for. Drove to the cross country. Had a great time, then came back, brought it back the next year to New York. And after a ball game one night, I hit home run number 400. And so after a game that night, took my girlfriend, we went to a place where we could eat. They hold some swordfish for me every night. And a guy walked up to the car. I put the window down because it was warm. I was parking the car, putting it in park, and he stuck a pistol right behind my left ear as I was driving. And said, get out, give me your car. And so I got out of the car and I turned around and looked at him. It was a 16-year-old black kid, maybe 14, 15, I don't know, but he was a teenager. And I lunged at him and he took the pistol and pointed it at me in the face and then dropped it down. A bus came by and disrupted what was going on. I told my girlfriend to run into the restaurant. She did. And so, that was that incident. I ran away. The kid got in the car and tried to drive it away, but the gear shift is electronic. And this was in the 70s. It was electronic and it was a touch movement. If you pulled on it, it wouldn't work. And so he was yanking on it. He couldn't get it started. He couldn't get it to go. And he got out and ran. And then later on that night, the next morning, it said that a woman in Scarsdale had her car hijacked from her, a Mercedes. And so that was probably the same kid.
Yeah. And in a flicker, in a moment, you saw your life 1 minute.
Oh, yeah.
It flashed right in front of you.
Right. Things flash right in front of you. That is so true. I when he put the point of the gun at me, I braced myself for the shot, but luckily, God was there and it didn't go off. A bus came by and disrupted it.
And just like a bus came by and disrupted that tragic event, you've been a vehicle, a bus, a transporter, coming by the lives of 40,000 kids you're serving now, 1 million kids you served before, all these folks you've actually inspired across this country. You've been the vehicle by which people have been riding this dream because of all you've achieved. And at 75 years old, you're still giving. I want to tell everybody who's watching this here and around the world, one of the nicest, kindest, most gentle souls I've ever met in my life, me and Shatra, is Reggie Jackson. He's 75 years old and still trying to give back. We need more Reggie Jacksons in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please say thank you to Reggie Jackson.
Thank you, John. Appreciate everybody there. Hopefully I can make it next year. And if I can't, it hopefully will be in the World Series again or in the playoffs again. And hopefully we can do another Zoom. But look forward to seeing you, John. And thank you, and thanks everybody there for accommodating my attendance here today. Much, much appreciated.
And Reggie, I want to tell you what Colin Powell told me in a note. I'm gonna say to you right now. He sent me a note that said, "I'm gonna keep popping off from time to time on things that matter." Reggie,
Yes,
my request to you: keep popping
that's
off
necessary.
on things
That
that
is
matter
necessary.
from time to time.
I understand that. I want to take the time for my guy Keith Lobering, who is there listening and looking into the what's going on down there, so that we can be more participatory. Uh, Keith took the time out of his work, took the time out of from his wife and the 4 girls he's got. Lucky stiff, to be able to be there today and to be able to connect with John so that we can move forward and get connected and support what John Hope is doing.
And I'm coming to stay in your guest house. Make some room.
No problem, my friend.
Love you, man.
I'll give you something nice to try.